Thank you. Azul Filawun. My name is Amina Mettouchi, and I am a Kabyle speaker from the northern part of North Africa. You can see the region on the top left of this slide. And this huge region, that is a region where Amazigh or Berber languages are spoken, extends over more than 8 million square kilometers. You have in that space 25 to 30 million speakers, 25 to 30 languages or linkages, and varied peoples, varied landscapes, as you can see from this slide. So I would like to situate my talk within the International Decade of Indigenous Languages, whose motto is leaving no one behind, no one outside. Excerpts from the Global Action Plan underline the fact that we need to have indigenous people who will entrust their languages to future generations, and the fact that indigenous languages should be preserved, revitalized, promoted, and used across all sociocultural, etc. The Global Action Plan mentions indigenous languages, not just endangered indigenous languages. And the key target groups, which are listed below, are children, language learners, but also knowledge keepers, such as elderly people, women and families. And the duty bearers are governments, policy and decision makers, etc., and enablers, media, communication and technology companies. So in this context, where we can see not only accelerated language loss, but also cultural loss, even for strong languages, I think that every undocumented language and its culture should be documented for the speaker's descendants. But the problem is that there are not enough researchers, there's not enough funding, not enough interest for some languages, not enough time, in order for all languages and their cultures to be documented using standard documentation methods, that is, methods involving academics or NGOs, be they top-down, collaborative, community-oriented, crowdsourced, etc. That's why I put together a project in 2018, which I called Auto-Documentation, as a speaker, and also as a linguist, working on my own language, Kabyle, and also another highly endangered language of the Berber Amazigh language family, and many other languages of that family. So I decided to give myself a mission, that of empowering all Amazigh speakers to document their own language and culture, languages and cultures. So I gave myself about 5 years, and I'm now at the last stage of my mission, the only one for which we need institutional collaboration, which is the level of archiving. So auto-documentation is, I define it as the constitution by speakers or communities of a body of recordings of their own languages and cultures, using methods and tools that do not involve academic institutions or funding, NGOs or other external support, but are accessible to any speaker or community in their local environment, which responds to a number of key concepts of the Indigenous Decade of the UNESCO. Auto-documentation is not collaborative, community-based, community-led, etc. documentation, which are all models which I find great. So let it be said, I'm not advocating to replace current documentation by auto-documentation. I'm just saying that there's not enough, as I said, people, funding, etc., for those other models, and we need to also take into account the skills of communities themselves and of speakers themselves. So everything must be found in the speaker's everyday environment. So no state-of-the-art recording equipment, no external money, no academic apps, no foreign help, etc. But local smartphones or local video cameras, social media, social apps, free software that you can find online, local associations or production companies, etc. So the Amazigh Languages Project, so that is the part that I'm doing, is also grassroots. There's no funding. So I'm doing this with no money. This is also to show that we can do that. We don't need to wait for funding. So I created and I manage the social media accounts. I record and I edit the awareness raising and skill sharing video clips. I interact with other activists for dissemination, etc. And doing this, I also show that I also learn how to do the things that I am proposing that other Amazigh speakers do. So for auto-documentation, future generations does not mean an abstract posterity or future linguists or anything like that, but the descendants of the speakers themselves. So linguists, anthropologists, and other people external to the community are peripheral to auto-documentation. They're possible end users, but they're not necessary end users. So transcription, translation, annotation are not defining parts of auto-documentation. It's for the speakers to decide if they consider it useful for their descendants or not. Minimally, video recordings in the language plus information about them are the typical output of auto-documentation. Information that can be useful to the descendants, who was recorded, when, etc. So something very bottom-up and relevant to the speakers or the community. Possibly an oral translation in a vehicular language of the region is possible in case of language shift, if the community fears that the language might become dormant and they want to have this as well, so that in their great-grandchildren might use their recordings with some help. So everything should make sense within the community's aim, which is intergenerational transmission. So my role in this is a facilitator, an activist in some way. I started by campaigning on social media to remove hurdles, knowing what those hurdles are in that area. That is, for instance, everyone thinks that there's only one Berber language because of a complex historical situation and political situation. So I'm getting to people and showing that there are actually several languages. Because if they think there's only one language, they think their dialect is not so important, so it can die. Reaffirming the significance and prestige of oral tradition. Everyone's obsessed with writing. Underlining the importance of intergenerational transmission of ancient knowledge. This is also in context of radical Islam, so very difficult situations where you have to allow or empower people to say, yes, we have these traditions and I'm going to do something about them. Empowering speakers, especially women, in a highly patriarchal society. So that's only part of the work, and I opened the Facebook page in 2018, the X or Twitter at the time, same year, and the YouTube channel the following year in April 2009. Then afterwards, I created a portal with resources for speakers. I have a few cards here with a QR code, so I can distribute them to you, and you can access this website. You can also just type the address at the top. And this portal leads to social media that you have at the top. It's for the moment bilingual in French and English, and has a number of clips, of tabs, on which you have clips helping people to do their own recordings themselves. So why document our languages? How can we prepare the recording? What does it mean to record for future generations? Because lots of people create documentaries, but they're not really things that can be useful in several generations. How to do this with smartphones and etc. How to save the data and the problem of archiving. Also, if they want to do documentaries, how to edit and broadcast, and there's a summary. New clips in Amazigh languages are currently being added, so I'm working with two, so an association and an individual, to get those clips into those Berber languages as well, and there's going to be several others as well.
أزول في اللون أزول في اللونت أزمم من توتلايت د الثقافة تمازيغت اللي علينا تنغوبو مخ أنسوين مخ كلو لي مور لي نتهانين غي سكواسنا تزرينين دو كلو تيغاوسيوين لي سولو نسنا تنسكر
أزول خاوم أزول خاكنت أزمم يرساون تسنانت مازيغت يطاحن يتودارن ما يمين يغسن خزاغة مرة من يودان مرة من ينفتكن أسكواز خسكواز مرة دي مسرايين إيوان قيم رمذ إيوان قيم تكسوفوس النخ.
There's also tutorials on that website for do-it-yourself things like a smartphone pod with a review mirror, a fan tube and things like that. These are ideas which are all gathered from my experience in Mali, for instance, where I saw people do extraordinary things. And so that the idea is not top down, but it's like, you can do it. You have so many ideas and we can share them among ourselves. So the channel is there to showcase outcomes of auto-documentations. And we have a number of videos that people have sent me that they've recorded and done themselves. These are just a few examples, but there are many, many, many videos that are somewhere on the internet and that cannot be accessed easily. This is an example of a channel that is inactive at the moment that has 3 videos. One of them is a beautiful theme nadine, which is a traditional singing style of Morocco. This is a video also on a Facebook page which does all sorts of other things than doing this, but has great information about the weaving process. So we need to collect and preserve these videos for future generations. As you all know, and this is an excerpt of one of the clips, saving is not archiving, and I gave a few strategies for short-term preservation for people, medium-term preservation. So my main take is to use YouTube and put it in unlisted mode on YouTube. But for the long term, we need archiving. And preservation is, of course, very important. So let's do it. Let's create an auto-documentation pathway in a bottom-up way, responding to speakers and communities' need to archive the materials they deem essential to pass on to their descendants, materials that they are creating based on their intimate and first-hand knowledge and practice of their cultures and languages, and presented in their own words. This is the workflow that I'm proposing for this. So we are at the bottom, there's the awareness campaign that I'm putting forward, with where I can add archiving information about a process that would be okay for the speakers and would work for an archive. So there's a kind of interfacing here that it's very important to do, and that I would like. This is the beginning of our conversation today, and I hope in the following days. So the speakers, they already know how to film. They upload to YouTube in unlisted mode with metadata in the description. Then the speaker sends a message to the archive. So this is on my social media, and they know where to find it. The address of the archive. The archive downloads the video, the metadata, and all other info, archives it. If agreement, opens access to the video, and provide feedback that is access to the depositor. So the role of the Amazigh language project is to disseminate information on this. So I'm giving more details about the metadata in YouTube. So these are the guidelines for speakers can be proposed as a sample video on my YouTube channel or on the project's YouTube channel, which could be pinned on the channel and could show how as an example, what can be done or what is good practice. So the depositor, the video with a title, a description, very basic. And I put here the terms in one Berber language. So Ashu, what, and we, who, tutelate, the language, anda, where, milmi, date of recording, and access rights, and also information about legacy. So here's an example, which is a created example, because the video is already there, but just to show what could be done on that video. It's about a salamander in the Babors region in North Algeria, and this is how this could be done. So the name of the creator, the contact, these are all false addresses, so I didn't want to put the real data online, but it's like the kind of thing that you would put. He provided, so Massinissa is absolutely great contributors to this project, and he has very nice knowledge of, very important knowledge of his region and culture. And so this is what information that could be put there, and who, the language, etc., the GPS coordinates, everything. This is what the speakers can do without any problem. They already know how to do it from their lives. So the challenges, of course, for the archive, I'm now on the side of the archive, is that there are different writing systems. There's Latin with special diacritics. There's the Amazigh script, which is Tifinagh. There's Arabic, so people are liable to write their description in all those scripts. Orthographies, even in one script, are fluctuating. There's different languages, different dialects, different varieties, not all of them are identified, and there's cultural awareness needed if the archive wants to gather the data and organize them in the system. So it's important to work with an auto-documentation activist of the region. So 2 suggestions to finish this talk, that are very basic suggestions from my reading. So for instance, there's a paper from a sociological perspective, so people who wrote a program in order to harvest videos of the 2008 presidential election. So they have a script, they get the description, they put metadata from the description and so on, and they have all sorts of information from there. So I'm just like pointing at other completely different approaches that could be useful in this situation. So a video downloader program, of course YouTube does it if you have a premium account, but that would need also to recognize the rubrics, what, who, the language, where, when, automatically collect the data in YouTube description, insert them in a spreadsheet for conversion to the archives format, and to some sort of macro roles as we use in syntax, for instance, linked to OLAC, for instance, so who would be a creator, and there would be tables of equivalences. So I think this is quite easy to, I mean, not difficult in principle. Of course, the implementation is another problem. So also a lexicon of keywords or hashtags in the main vernaculars to be compiled, and in the main vehiculars of the region, Arabic, French, and in English, for culturally based or organized archiving. So here I just gave the example of where, which in one of the Amazigh languages is Ani, another one is Anda, another one is Mani. So we need also there to have tables of equivalences, but I think it's not extremely problematic to do in principle again, but then it's, and then the archive knows that this is a place of recording and decides whether it's coverage or not in OLAC metadata, and that's the internal work of the archive. And then Mirth, thank you. This is my proposal, and I hope we can talk about it now and later.